one of my ideas that I wanted to focus on, again, there's the mechanical heart that we have. And we know in this country and really around the world right now, because so many people and countries are following the, the standard American diet, which we call the SAD diet, right? And it's sad because it's basically void of nutrients. I mean, our soil is contaminated and, it's demineralized because of, improper farming techniques. So we're getting back, some of us, to like small farming as opposed to like huge industrial farming, but we're losing a lot of the nutrients. And so, looking at, like, again, the white flour, white sugar, that's all processed food. And that really gives us calories, but it doesn't really give us back any vitamins and minerals, and good sources of protein, which basically is going to like regenerate and rejuvenate our bodies. So we're eating kind of this sad food. And then what happens is we're not really feeding the organs of the body. We're not feeding the muscles. We're not feeding our brain, for sure. And number one disease is heart disease. So, there is a genetic component to heart disease. And I would say, I mean, mostly we can see through testing, or you can see through, going back to your parents, your grandparents. Oh, like in my family, it was, my grandfather died of a stroke in his early 60s. My grandmother died of a heart attack in her early 50s. So it was like, oh, heart disease follows in my family. Now, we're not exactly sure, like, was that a genetic coding? Because my mother lived to 95. Some of her other sisters lived to, one sister lived to 97. One sister lived to 65. So if it's genetic, then everyone should follow in that footstep, and they didn't. But sometimes you have a limited belief and you say, that happened to them. That means they're my blood family line. That means that's going to happen to me. And with the body, what we're looking at in terms of kicking ass is kicking those ideas to the curb, right? So why? Because they're self-limiting beliefs and it's not necessarily true. So a lot of healing has to do with partly your mindset, but I'm going to call your mind today your heart, because I'm going to go through a technique of kind of moving through the heart, the mind connection. And as I said, if you study Chinese medicine, I don't think Rosemary was here yesterday, and she's an acupuncturist. The idea is that they're one and the same, but we tend to kind of lead with the head, like head first, headstrong, right? And we're not leading with the heart. So the idea now is not only is there a predominance of number one killer in this country is heart disease. Now, it's interesting because how many drugs do we have for heart? How many surgeries do we have for heart? How many stents do we have? So if there's blockages, we can put a stent in. If there's high blood pressure, we can give hypertension medication. We have pacemakers. We have all scientific resources at our disposal and all the top specialists to curb and curtail heart disease. So why is it increasing instead of decreasing? And why is everybody and their mother on, a blood pressure medicine? And why is everybody and their mother on a cholesterol lowering drug? So if all of these things were working, and kind of like we know that they're not working, because if they were working, it wouldn't still be the number one killer. Obesity is the number one, not number one, but it's a number one epidemic these days with children. And it's obesity leads to diabetes. And so we have children now with what we used to call late onset diabetes, meaning as people 50, 60, 70 develop diabetes. Now we're getting those conditions in juveniles, and it's directly related to obesity. So we know in a situation like that, it's not about that you're inheriting this. It's about what you're eating and what you're putting actually into your mouth. So it's like feet, forks, feet, forks, feet. Are you moving? Fork, what you're putting into your mouth, right? So that's somewhat the focus that I want to talk about. And why did I come up with kick ass? Again, it's an irreverent way of saying kick your old life to the curb, because your body can heal itself. And it's all about making your body a better place to live.